Hey guys, Thingfishy here, and welcome to episode 4 of the Starting Class series, where I take each starting character through the game, keeping to the same general equipment as the starting class. This week it's the hero, and the setup is simple. We have an axe and shield. So Kari and Retaliation on the shield for parries as usual, and the axe? Well, there's certainly one that sticks out as the most interesting choice. To get set up for this run, I followed my standard setup guide for all of the early upgrade materials, and you'll be happy to know that we only need the Sombers for this build. We pick up the action here, heading south from the Third Church of Marika for the 2 pillars of any remotely bonky build. Grab the Spike Crack tier from under the Minor Erd tree, then to the Mistwood Ruins for the Axe Talisman. Now we're going to ride up the eastern coast of Liurnia, through the forest, dodging all of the arrows perfectly, to grab our weapon for the run. Rosus's Axe. This one's been on my radar for a while now, after receiving a buff a few patches back. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity to try it out. Keep heading north to the Black Knife Catacombs. You can either sneak past this guard, or run past him and quit out to light the grace. The axe is in the first room on your left, behind a stone sword key gate. Now to Lena's Rise in Caelid for some runes. Jump onto the side of the bridge and quit out in front of this hole in the wall. The Knight's Cavalry will usually jump at you as you load back in, but be ready to quit out if he doesn't. Now to Fort Fareth to kill the Sleepy Dragon with the Bleed Grease and the Morning Star from the setup. Popping a pickled fuck, I forgot the foul foot. Look, I've been making these guys for over a year now, and this is the first time I forgot to pick up a pickled foul foot. You guys should be proud of me for that. You're going to be slightly higher level than I am on this run. Now to the Grace by EG. Drop down the ledge and ride north for the Intelligence Not tier. Now into Caria Manor. Run into Loretta's arena and quit out in the corner to disable her AI for easy and early access to Carian Retaliation for easy parries on your medium shield. Head back to the round table to buy a dagger. Level your axe to +6 and equip the dagger with Golden Vow. To be honest, I forgot to use Golden Vow for most of this run, but it's useful for some extra juice if you want to. Margit then. The axe is really good. The damage it puts out is strong enough alone to warrant a playthrough with it, but the secret ingredient is this axe's Ash of War. For Godric, I thought I'd ignore the Ash of War for phase 1 and just use this thing normally. You get really solid damage. So solid that I think if I had taken the Riposte here, I probably would have got a phase 2 skip, like the much more meaty Knight Rider glaive on last week's run. But doing this for phase 2 is much more fun. Once again, I'm going straight for Radahn here, but less experienced players should head to Raya Lucaria first. Now, unlike every other weapon in this series so far, the axe isn't really good enough to completely trivialise Radahn. You can easily do phase 1 by spamming the Ash of War in between all of his scripted attacks, but you will have to have a scrap with him in phase 2, where I'd recommend quicker attacks and safety over Ash of War spamming. If you're particularly scared of Radahn, feel free to swap him out with either of the next 2 bosses, who you might find a tad more approachable with this build. After Radahn, we can head to the Walking Mausoleum in Weeping to duplicate his remembrance for some extra runes. Then head back to the round table to grab the 3rd talisman slot from Enya. As always, on a melee build, I filled this with the Ritual Sword Talisman, which you can get by defeating the demi-human queen in the Lux ruins in Altus. Now head to Volcano Manor for Noble, and I'll just let this one play. Head through the rest of the dungeon, through the Stone Sword Key Gate, and drop down to grab the Dagger Talisman. Then all the way to the bottom for the Somber 7 on the balcony, allowing us to get the axe to +9. For the Draconic Sentinel, you can do the majority of his health bar very quickly by going in with the weapon art, then a charged R2 for the stagger, followed by another weapon art during the transition. From here, a couple of parries for an easy fight. And if you think this looks manageable, you'll be pleased to know that this is actually with a +6 axe. I did this before I went to Volcano Manor, but this order probably makes a little more sense. For Godfrey, just go with 1 or 2 quick attacks between his combos, depending on how comfortable you are with the moveset. The posture damage isn't quite good enough for a stagger, but this is quite an easy Godfrey. For our 4th talisman slot, we head back to Radahn's arena and ask our best mate to give us his shard. For Morgott, I started off by parrying him, and once again failing miserably to get that damn upward swing. 3 parries, a riposte, and a weapon art will take him to phase 2. And for phase 2, now straight to the mountaintops without having to pick up any bloody smithing stones. This weapon is great for Fire Giant. Like a lot of fights on this run, you can just treat this Ash of War as a gigantic charged R2. It's really good for getting rid of his health very quickly in both phases. Run through Farum, all the way to the Dragon Temple Transept Grace, for a very entertaining duo fight. Stack them up together for the style points, then Ash of War for the win. If you keep attacking until they're fully despawned, you can get a very neat 2-cycle. The speed of the axe means we can be super aggressive in the beast fight, and the damage means it won't last long. For Malekith, a question. What's the luckiest stagger you've ever got in this game? Now to the Ashen Capital, where Operation Procrastinate Fighting Gideon begins. For Stage 1, head to Castle Sol for Commander Nile. And as it seemed to be my day for being really greedy and getting away with it, I went all in. Head through the snowfields all the way to Ordner Town. Then ride south to Cheese the Invader and head through the teleporter into Mogwin's Palace. The axe is really good for Moog, allowing you to take a sizable part of his health bar by spamming the Ash of War during his countdown in Phase 1. Like Radahn though, you will have to have a bit of a scrap in Phase 2. The axe's quick attacks are perfect for this if you want to play it safe, but there are plenty of opportunities for the Ash of War too, if you have a good grasp of his moveset. As I was still avoiding Gideon, I went back to Farum for Plassey. There isn't much to say about this fight. Using the standard attacks will give you a drawn out but pretty safe fight. However, running round the back for Ashes of War in the fire attacks will deplete his health bar much faster. For Phase 1 Godfrey, treat it no different to the Shade. 1 or 2 quick attacks between his combos for an easy time. And while it would be very easy to manage his stamina and delete Hoaraloo with a Phase 2 stagger, I actually wanted to fight him at least once in this series. And this fight gave me 2 perfect examples of something that you want to watch out for on this weapon. The tracking on the Ash of War can be a little off if you're not directly facing the enemy. So you want to avoid using it while you're coming out of a roll like you see here, as the skeletons will miss. This isn't a big issue. I probably had it happen only half a dozen times on the whole playthrough, but it's still something to bear in mind for the more hectic fights. For Radagon, I went with parries and R1s, but used those longer cooldowns from his big attacks to get the Ash of War in. For Elden Beast, who was a complete troll on this playthrough, just hit the Ash of War whenever you can. It does really solid damage to him, and you almost always have time for it. To finish off the run, head to the Halig Tree and all the way to Loretta. Like the previous Sentinels, parries and charged attacks are really good, but staggers, her phase transition and her big blue attacks provide excellent opportunities for the Ash of War. And finally, Malenia. You'll have to take my word for it that the runes on the floor were the result of a poorly timed bathroom break while the cutscene played. But this was actually a first try Malenia, and that only tends to happen on weapons that I'm super familiar with and don't require any experimentation. And I think that's quite a good summary of Rosas' axe. It's a really reliable, no-frills melee armament like a claymore, the Uchi or the broadsword, but with an Ash of War that shreds health bars when you want it to. So it's definitely one that I'd recommend to anyone who wants to brush up on their boss fights on a fun melee build. And that's it, how to make a super fun hero build. If you try this build, please let me know how you get on in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. See you soon.